Hi, Katerina and Rachel. I thought I would send you an update on where I'm at with the fieldwork and analysis, and I thought it would be quite useful to send it as a video. So it's got four main points. There's some overview at the beginning and then really dives into where I'm at with the analysis. So just to give you a bit of a catch-up, a reminder, leading up to the interview, I'm sending emails to these potential participants. If they're keen, I'm scheduling a Teams meeting. And then afterwards, leading up to the interview, I'm drafting questions and topics that are based off of the HREC accepted questions, as well as informing myself off of what I've already interviewed with and some of the questions that have come up, and as well as their position in the company or whichever field they're in more specifically, architecture, product design, or interactive design. And during that time, they're completing the consent form. Then the interview itself is recorded using Microsoft Teams. It's a little semi-structured, more of a conversation, and it lasts between 30 minutes to an hour. Once that's done, I save it and transcribe it into a sort of Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, just so I can get a handle of it. I go, as we talked about, by hand. It's not critical discourse analysis or clear, sort of analysis on what they're saying. So I have the opportunity to remove any times that they're doubling on their words or they're using too many uhs or ands or I'm not sure. So I can take that out without overriding the transcription. And I can also start highlighting or putting in bold some of the points that I think are going to be interesting or a little bit, they catch my eye. Then in terms of the analysis, I've taken the notions that we've approved of through the upgrade and I've color coded them. And using those, I do a line-by-line analysis, placing or highlighting whichever sections of the text sort of connect with one of the notions. And I have another block just beside it as I go through it that I can have comments on just to work as I go. Then to start engaging with and exploring it, I organize that data into, one of them is just a global table that shows me ratios, how many times a notion over another has come up. This isn't with the intention of creating quantitative research, is just to give myself some ideas. And I also do a report on each notion. So every time something came up, I mention what it is, and then that can help me look at the conversation globally. You might be wondering what these codes are. So just to explain or to make it easier, A1P1 dot A1V1 is activity 1 with the participant 1, and it's the first analysis of the data using the first version of the notions. So the reason why I do it that way is because when observing the ratios, for instance, I noticed that there was a high occurrence of unclassified points, things that I couldn't quite fit into the existing notions that we had set up. And that helped me see that I needed to review them in some way. So I did that, and as you can see, version 2 here, everything that's in black was already in version 1, and then everything that's in orange are things that I've added onto it to either make it more precise, or in the case of the bottom section, accessibility for users and project accessibilities, I actually split them because it was a bit too confusing, and they were all sort of shifting into unclassified because they weren't quite fitting the description that we had set up at first. So just to show you what that means, the one on the left is the original version of the notions or the analysis. And then in the second one, I've added project access. So that has become version 2. And so when that goes into the analyses, you have analysis 1 with participant 2 with the, activity 1 with participant 2, analysis 1 with version 1. There was a lot of purple because there was just a lot of unclassified. And then I redid the analysis using the new versions, independent to the first analysis. So that became A1P2, A2V2, because it's a second analysis using the second version. And as you can see, there was a lot less purple, and that purple being unclassified. And so it became a lot more precise. And then I compared the two afterwards just to see which ones were coming up. And there was a lot of accordance between the majority of them, and the purple ones were actually being replaced by useful points. So that was quite helpful, and it's showing that the new version is doing something that's more precise now, and it's refining the notions, really, or the research. To help me do that, I also have another notebook, as you can see here. I really just, after doing all of these analyses, this is an opportunity to, one, step away from the screen, but also to just write about how I'm thinking about these things, what kind of correlations I'm seeing, what kind of ideas I have in mind, things that are coming up more or less than I was expecting. So that helps me sort of engage with it. And on the left-hand side, you can see some of the diagrams and stuff that are just thinking about the relationships that they have or where they're placed along the process. So I'm making some tentative observations and connections. For instance, with version 2 of the notions, I've split accessibility, as I said, into user accessibility, so things that pertain specifically to the users, things like code or height requirements or user absolute needs, versus project accessibility, which has more to do with things that impede or enable the project itself. So things like the budget, the time to market, the manufacturing ability. So those participants are talking about them as what they have access to, but that doesn't, in my mind, connect the same way with user accessibility and project accessibility. So it's just making it easier to analyze. I'm noticing still some unclassified notions, and they seem to be edging somewhere around the values added post-production. So what this means is the idea that after designing it or after it being launched, there's additional value somewhere that was unexpected, and then that's contributing in the next projects. So there's something there, but it isn't being captured in the notions that do talk about sort of the process itself as it's happening, whereas this one it's something after the fact. So I just need to keep working on that and looking at it as I go. And I'm also noticing some connections, for instance, between marginalization and governing mentalities. Sometimes it's tough to dissimulate the two because it seems like continued unchecked marginalization slowly becomes a governing mentality. And the same is true in reverse of governing mentalities can consistently marginalize. So they have these connections. And there's also, in some cases, specific notions like fairness or the design stages that are happening within the scale of change that the team is trying to place. I'm not drawing any real conclusions on that yet, just because I want to see where this leads as the analyses continue, but it's just something to think about, and that's why I'm writing it down in the notebook to then be able to analyze and refer back to once the fieldwork is complete. For now, the next steps, I have activity 1 with participant 3, the first analysis using version 2 of the notions to be done. So that one is ready to be analyzed. I just need to do it. And then I have successfully scheduled a 4th participant, but they're only available as of April 2021, just because the company itself is really, really busy right now with managing some of its clients during COVID. I need to confirm a date with participant 5. This is someone I contacted back in November who agreed, and we just needed to set up a time. And I do want to check on my network again to find a 6th participant or do some cold calling again, just because it would be nice to maybe have another architect or someone from architectural planning involved. And I need to start deciding on what activity 2, the content of activity 2 for participant 1 and participant 2. And we'll see with participant 3 as well, but I just need to start thinking about what specific topics I want to talk about. And the versions of those notions or these new notions are going to help me, sort of press on specific points that I would like to address with them in the second interviews with them. So I hope that was helpful. And thank you. And I hope you have a nice weekend.